Welcome in to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. A podcast dedicated to everything you need to know about the squad. Hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and those who cover the NBA on a daily basis. It's time to flock up. The New Orleans Pelicans Podcast starts right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. Gus Kattengell with you, and normally I would say alongside Jim Eichenhofer, Pelicans.com. I don't know if Andrew Lopez went Nancy Kerrigan on him, or it's just the fact that Jim Eichenhofer is actually feeling a little under the weather. So
I have no comment on this situation.
It wasn't Nancy Kerrigan. It was Tanya
Harding and Nancy Kerrigan.
Got that wrong. See what I just did? Regardless, no one took Jim out. Jim's
feeling a little under the weather, and I was supposed to be here anyway.
Yeah. Well, there's a practice to go on here, and we'll get into that. As the Pels last night took on the Sacramento Kings. It was a game not on that schedule. Maybe took some people by surprise. I thought you had the week off. My wife totally thought I had the week off. It was like, so nice to have you. I'm like,
oh, yeah, you're going to have 11 days off. This is great. Like, no. We don't have a maxi all-star break, basically, in the middle of December.
But you and I will take 4 out of 5 days being able to be home.
That I will take, yes.
Especially you.
That I will take.
There's no doubt about that. So it was nice. Pels get back in action on Sunday. We'll get into all of that and more. We'll break down some things that took place yesterday specifically, but let's do the recap. 111-109 the final. This is what it sounded like on the Pelicans radio network. Ty Graffinini.
Now Boston to Trey between circles with 4 to shoot. Deep straightaway 3. Count it!
Trey with a step back missile.
Murphy's feeling it. So Trey Murphy with 16 first quarter points. Murray, 1-on-1 with Fox. 5-on-5, drives in, floats it up baseline, down, tough shot, DeJounte Murray.
As good a player as De'Aaron Fox is, he is a physical mismatch for DeJounte Murray.
Weak side rebound, Herb Jones. Herb running the break. Herb front court, chests it to Murray. Murray 1-on-1 with Monk. Left corner, McCollum, pop a left angle, 3, good!
Oh, that's tough. That is tough. That's a bucket getter.
We ain't dead yet, baby. 104-97. Mike Brown takes the timeout. 4:20 to go. McCollum now with 28 in this game. 106-99. Down 7. 3:20 to go. DeRozan. Cross court over to Monk. Pick from Sabonis. Hook pass to Murray. Left wing 3. Keegan Murray. Barely rippled the net. Big shot. 109-99, 3:05 to go. McCollum's got 30 now, which ties a season high. 3-ball, CJ!
That's the 3 you can get off the screen. Mr. President over the top.
33 from McCollum, a season high. 109-106 Sacramento. Pick from Nisi, whip it to CJ. Head fake. Spins right, pick, got it back, drives in, lefty floater, off the glass!
Yes, sir! Yes, sir, CJ!
And 1! He threw it up, and the prayer was answered.
You do not want this. That man is sizzling.
Fox, deep left wing, looking for a pick, got it from Keegan Murray, straightaway 3. In and out! Rebound Herb! Outlet pass to Murray. You can take the lead with a 3, tie with a 2.
Well, CJ's at least got to touch it.
Murray chests it over to McCollum. Drives in, running floater off the glass. No, rebound Sabonis. Sabonis just picked up his 20th rebound. To DeRozan. DeRozan up top. Take a mid-range, top of the key. Short rebound, it's CJ. Shot clock is off.
You can go.
Murray front court left with 9 seconds left. Murray drives in, goes behind the back, spins, lost it. Taken by Sabonis, and they're going to dribble it out. We got a reach and foul. You don't even get a shot off. Ball game. After all of that, you don't get a shot off at the end.
Ty Graffinini, John DeShazer there, and Nicole. Andrew, I think one of the things that's tough, obviously, is you battle so hard to get there, and that's just the type of season it is right now. So the Pels fall to 5-21. Overall thoughts before we break down specifics into that game as to why it was another loss, but just overall thoughts.
When Alvin Gentry was a coach here, he used to have I don't know if he knew he had a saying, but he would throw something into press conferences.
For whatever reason?
At the end of very hard-fought losses. Where he would say, we needed a perfect storm to get back in the game because you fell behind by 12 in the first quarter because you had X amount of turnovers. Last night, you needed an absolute perfect storm, and you almost had everything you need until the last possession. And I think you're trying to play where the Kings can't have their defense set, and it worked from like the 3-minute mark to the 45-second mark, and then you got the shot maybe you wanted on the play before that, did not get the shot on the final possession. But when you have the other issues, the second chance points, the turnovers, it puts you in a spot where everything has to go right, and you needed everything in the final 3 minutes when you were down 14. A little before that, but you needed everything to go right down the stretch, and you had it going with CJ. You were like 98% of a perfect storm, and you needed that 100 to get over the hump.
Yeah, here's head coach Willie Green.
The third quarter we need to be better, but when you look at it, it's really our turnovers and their offensive rebounds, second chance points. So our margin for error is small. That's what I told our guys. Like, they battled their tails back, gave themselves an opportunity to win, put ourselves in a position to win. But we got to take care of the ball. We got to finish possessions and not allow teams to get 10 extra shots, and then they beat us by 10 at the free throw line. So just cutting down those margins gives us more of an opportunity.
Now, Andrew, C.J. McCollum, 36. You heard he was all up in those highlights there. Got hot at the right time there. Here's C.J.
It was just a combination of all the work, behind closed doors, coming to fruition. I haven't shot the ball well from 3 all season. We finally had a break where I could work out. Got some good working with Casey. I had my shooting coach come in, and we got some work the last couple nights, me and Bruce, and it felt good. I told my wife, I said, I got to get in the gym while we got a chance, so I'm going to need you to put the kids to sleep without me, and I'll be back later tonight. So it's a sacrifice all the way around, just to get some extra work and get some extra reps in. It's nice to see the ball go in. It's nice to be able to come off and feel like when I shoot it, it's going to go in just because of the work. So it was a good fourth quarter. And I wish it was a great fourth quarter. We didn't get enough stops, a couple offensive rebounds, some turnovers. I had a couple in the fourth quarter that I can't have, but those are the little things that you got to prevent from happening, especially against a team that's offensive-minded like Sacramento. They're going to get out and run. They feast off of turnovers, and that hurt us tonight.
Willie Green had a couple of things to say about C.J. McCollum here, and I want to get your opinion as to the importance that he is on this team here.
C.J. was fantastic in the fourth. He made big play after big play, big shot after big shot. I thought our defense was solid. We were able to get some stops late in the game, but like I said, just the margin for error is so small when we're undermanned that we collectively as a group taking care of the ball and then rebound the ball a bit better.
Look, you heard him mentioning Andrew putting the kids to bed. I mean, that's my thing. You're about to find that out too. I mean, you do. You value that. You honestly do, and you enjoy it. But that's a pro's pro there. He's understanding, hey, man, my team needs me. I mean, this team has got to get his three-point shooting there. And for him to do that and understand that, and then for it to pay dividends, I know you didn't get to win yesterday, but if I'm a Pels fan, I'm trying to find something to make me feel good about. That's going to go a long way to helping this team win.
Yeah, look, CJ is a professional scorer. That is what he does. When you have 8-9 years in a row of averaging 20 points a game, I mean, that's hard to do. Mm-hmm. And it did feel like last night, as CJ pointed out, it felt like every shot was going to go in that second half because of the confidence he was shooting it with. There was a time where, from my angle where I sit during games, now I'm sitting behind the baseline near the Pels bench. I don't always have the best angle if, fans are standing up or anything like that. But from where I'm sitting, there was something like, oh, man, maybe that looks short. And it's like, no, that's it. Like, he looked in the second half, it was like, get CJ the ball. And that is one of the benefits of not making the NBA Cup. Because as we joked about the 11 days off that are not 11 days off, from the 8th to the 19th, when you have a scheduled game at San Antonio and a scheduled game at Houston, it's a lot of practice days. Mm-hmm. You're able to come in and get work on Tuesday and Wednesday and have full practice. You're able to have another, practice today. You play on Sunday. You still have a few days to get more work in before you go to Houston.
And to quickly interrupt you, what was really interesting is the phrase that coach used and players used that really describes the need for that was they said it was almost training camp-like. Like, think about that. It's not, hey, we need some work on this area, work on this thing. I played a 42-second bite from Willie Green yesterday in the pregame in which he described all the things they need to work on. Basically everything. He talked about everything. I mean, from defense to transition to offense to rebounding, everything. So when you hear coach and players say it is almost a training camp feel like, it's crazy, and it really puts into perspective the amount of players you haven't had time on the court to now, but training camp.
And that's the problem is they were early game situations this year, late game situations, I should say, early in the season where you had two guys close. I think it might have been the last Indiana game. Yeah. I think that's the one I'm thinking about, where Indiana comes out with a 114-110 win, and you had three guys on the floor who were not in training camp with this team. So you got to remember, Brandon Boston did not go through training camp.
Todd said that yesterday at practice. He says, you know who has the most minutes on his team?
Brandon Boston?
Who was not in training camp. Think about that.
So, the Brandon Boston, and even when you go back last night and you start thinking about the guys you didn't have. And you didn't have Zion. You didn't have Brandon Ingram. You didn't have Jordan Hawkins. You didn't have Jose Alvarado. You also didn't have Javonte Green, who has played in almost every game this year. You also didn't have Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who had played in every game this year. Pels are now one of 3 teams in the NBA who have had a guy miss at least every game. No one has played 26 of 26.
It's incredible.
You lead the NBA in man games lost. You've used the most starting lineups in the league so far. So when you do have 3 days off between games, 3 full days where you can practice, have another shoot around. There were some drills that I saw in practice on Wednesday that I had not seen them do before. They're trying new things. They're getting new things. They're working every which way they can to try to get all of these pieces to fit. And there's only so much you can do now in this new NBA where practice is an hour long, an hour 15. You have film, you have teach, you have practice. There's only so much. That total is probably like 2.5.
Wow.
But the on-floor time, because of everything else you're doing, is shrinking. So when you're looking at it, it's like, man, they really haven't had a lot of time to work on these different lineups and see where these guys are going. So it is a tough situation that needs a lot of on-court time.
Yeah, no doubt. Speak with Andrew Lopez, sideline reporter and host over on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, filling in for Jim Eichenhofer. Don't worry, he misses you too. He's a little under the weather. We'll have him back on Monday. Let's get into some specifics here, all right? Because it's not just this past game. We saw some situations here recently. Let's start with what basically blew up social media and still is. I mean, to timeout or to not timeout, right? San Antonio, last couple possessions, last one. Do you call a timeout or not? Coach Willie Green decided not to. He explained afterwards, he's like, look, man, you got the guy that I want to have the ball, and they feel they're better transitionally on offense that way. It happened again last night. And you heard in the highlights, they had 2 opportunities to tie or take the lead. They didn't call a timeout. They wound up the game with 2 timeouts still in their pockets. Here's Coach.
Yeah, I was kind of caught in between. We got the stop, got the rebound, and then once the ball got to DeJounte, it's in one of our better players' hands. I just kind of let him go, and I'm fine with his ability to make those plays at the end of games, but it could have went either way. I could have called a timeout, probably put us in a better position, but also it allows their defense to be set. Some of our best offenses when we rebound the ball and we put teams on their heels. Unfortunately, we just didn't make the play at the end of the game.
Trey Murphy, who we'll get to here in a quick second, at 16 first quarter points. His thoughts on to timeout or to not timeout.
I mean, it's tough because, if you call timeout, they can set the defense up, put their best defensive players in there, or you can just get to something and, figure it out. So, it's two sides of the coin. Just whatever you pick. And
C.J. McCollum onto timeout or not the timeout.
The two highest paid players on the court touched the ball. I got the rebound. I passed it to DeJounte. We just got to do a better job of giving each other space and then executing. Got to get a shot. We didn't get a shot, so that was the tough part. But we have all the confidence in the world in DJ, all the confidence in the world in the rest of our guys to make the right play. And we got to do a better job. Willie's going to trust us down the stretch. We got to do a better job of giving him reasons to trust us.
Andrew, you heard from Coach. You heard from two players.
It's still tough. Typically in these situations, Willie Green has not been a timeout guy. And I don't know if that's the old player in him. You want to trust your guys. Typically in this situation, you saw it in San Antonio, you saw it last night. He is a let my guys go make plays kind of coach. Sometimes that has worked out. Sometimes that has not worked out. Times when it does work out, you don't really hear much about it. You're just like, oh, it worked. I go back to San Antonio last year. Z finishes with a layup. I don't think they had a timeout in that situation, but time was less. Mm-hmm. You let your guys go. Sometimes that works. Sometimes that doesn't. Last night, you had two. I think maybe that changes how you look at it. But again, as Coach said, the reason you went to get DeJounte Murray was because he was a clutch player. You were not a very good team in that aspect a year ago. DeJounte Murray was the only player in the NBA last year to have 3 game-winning shots, which I think 3 go-ahead shots under 5 seconds in the fourth quarter.
Sure.
He did it. In fact, he did it in back-to-back games, I think, at one point. As CJ pointed out, he got the rebound. He got it to DeJounte. And his point, the two highest-paid guys on the floor
legit
touched the ball.
Right.
The execution was not what you wanted because you don't get a shot off. As CJ talked about, and this goes back to our previous point, did everybody on that floor, like you got guys who didn't know maybe where they were going or the spacing wise. Just get out. I know if Eve's on, just move. Into the setting their defense, you got to. I don't think there was anybody. Yes, you had Keon Ellis. Yes, you had Keegan Murray. I feel like you could have schemed around that if they were to get their best defensive guys on the floor. If they're pulling somebody off cold, I think that's okay. Mm-hmm. But you do have to trust your guys at a certain point. And you trusted CJ for most of the fourth to just do whatever he could, and he did whatever he could. But that's the reason you got DeJounte Murray. And it just did not work out last night. But this is a guy who has done this over and over and over and over and over again. And again, last possession didn't go your way, but this is what Willie does. He likes to trust his guys. You heard him say it. Could I have called the timeout and put us in a better situation? Yes. But when DeJounte has the ball, it's, go and see.
And look, we talk about this a lot of times in football, and you covered football here as well, and we do it in basketball too. Last year the Pels, 12 to 15 games. I lost track of clutch games in which they had the lead or could have won and lost those games. And a lot of those times, too, you look at it as maybe you never wanted to be in the officials' hands. You never wanted to come down to the last play. Games do. I get it. But are there things that maybe could have helped you moving on? And you kind of heard that at the beginning of the podcast, Andrew. And in specifics, let's start with the one thing that has been an Achilles heel on this team. With their starters, with their best players, or with guys that literally are signed and start, right? Like Elfrid Payton. Turnovers. And it's not just regular turnovers. It's unforced errors. It's just live ball turnovers, silly passes, things that just lead to points. Here's what Willie Green had to say on it.
We just got to get off of it. Sometimes we get stuck and we don't have anything and we're trying to force it just a little bit. And I understand, the intention is there. Guys are trying to do the right thing in terms of, put their head down, get to the basket, try to make a play. But sometimes the pass is the simple, most easy option for us.
All right, here's CJ on it.
Just be smarter with our decision making, not going in certain areas, getting off the ball faster, landing on two. Sometimes we jump to score, jump to pass, and now you kind of committing, an easy turnover that could be prevented just by coming on 1-2. Just the basic stuff that we learn. Everybody's trying to make a play. Everybody's trying to be aggressive, and they're supposed to be, but we just got to be a little bit smarter. I got to fake a pass to make a pass. It's the little stuff that you learn, when you first start playing basketball that sometimes you get away from, and we got to get back to the basics.
17 turnovers.
I know it's now, 26 games? Mm-hmm. 2.5 months into the season. 3 months, really, when these guys started doing informal training camp stuff. When the lineup is still changing every night, it is hard to get that consistency with your teammates. The reason why you have, a team like Golden State with Steph and Draymond, they've been playing together for so long. Steph knows where Draymond's going to be. Draymond knows where Steph's going to be. When you're still changing and you look at the fact that CJ and DeJounte have only played for 6-7 games at this point, maybe 8 games at this point, that's not a lot of time to know all the tendencies you would like to know. They're changing. Your backups are changing. So now when your backups are changing, now you're coming into different second group lineups, and you're maybe the start of your second quarter is not working. Your start of this is not working. You can't get into very consistent lineups where I know with Brandon Ingram, he's going to play till about the 2-minute mark of the first quarter, and he's going to come back in the 6-minute mark, and then he's going to do the same thing in the second half. They've had games where DeJounte's played the whole first quarter. They've had games where Trey's played the whole first quarter, and it kind of fluctuates the whole time because not just your starters are hurt. When your backups are hurt, when Javonte is hurt, when JRE is hurt, everything changes. You have to throw Tone out there for a couple minutes. You have to throw Trey Jemison out there for a few minutes. Everything is moving around. And it's sometimes these split-second moves of, I think this guy's going to be right here. I got to throw the ball. He's not looking. Mm-hmm. There were a few last night, even with DeJounte and Trey, of DeJounte thinks Trey's going to be in the deep corner. Trey's kind of trying to come out to the wing. And boom, he goes a behind-the-back pass because he thinks Trey's there. Trey's not there. Same thing on the other side. It's little things that, again, go back to it's why you needed 3 days of practice and training camp style, what have you. It's a lot. And it's, to a certain extent, it hurts to have so many guys out. Again, number 1 team in the NBA in games lost. Number 1 team in starting lineups. Most guys. It's one of these stats where you
There's
look
a correlation.
at it. When you look at it and you go, oh, we had the most guys in the NBA who've scored 20 points in a game. Well, that means you probably had enough guys that have had a chance to score 20 points in a game, too. And it's a good set and not a great set at the same time. Right. But it goes back to games lost. It goes back to starting lineups. It just has not been a lot of consistency. And that's no fault of everybody. Injuries happen. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the injuries on this team have been freak injuries. There's just only so much you can do. And kind of as CJ said, like, not leaving your feet to jump to make a pass. Mm-hmm. Fake a pass to make a pass. All these little things that it's like, oh yeah, we can do that. Maybe that's 3 less turnovers in a game that turn into 7 points off turnovers less, and all of a sudden you have a little bit of a swing that could be worth 10 points total because maybe you score on that possession now. And those are the differences in games like this.
I want to touch on Trey Murphy. He finished with 21. He had 16, Andrew, in the first quarter, which is the most he's ever had in a quarter in his career. And he had 5 the rest of the game. Mm-hmm. Coach Green.
Of course, just stay aggressive. Just stay aggressive, period.
C.J. McCollum on Trey.
I think just continuing to be aggressive in transition. Obviously, he scored 16 points, and they knew that he scored 16 points, so they was going to defend him a little different throughout the rest of the game. Tougher closeouts, more rotations on the drive once he breaks that three-point line. But we got to figure out how to get him the ball. Got to figure out how to get him the ball with space and set better screens and find him in transition and those types of things.
All right, so help me out here because fans are listening going, wait, how do you have 16 and not that? And then you hear specifically, again, a pro scorer say he needs to be aggressive. His coach say he needs to be aggressive. So I need you to explain what they mean by that because you look at what he's done. This team needs him. 25 points, 21, 16, 19, 14, 11, 21, 24, 24 in the last several games here at the end of November into December. That's the reason they gave him the extension. So he's capable of doing that. I love the fact that I saw early in this game what I've been screaming, drive to the basket. Mm-hmm. You're in a dunk contest. You're probably the most athletic guy they got. Like, go in there and dunk, shoot the three. He can be that guy. So when you hear the coach and a top pro player say aggressive, is that next step he needs to take? What do they mean by that specifically?
I think, and you heard AD talk about this on the broadcast last night. If you're watching the post-game show, you heard Wes Johnson talk about this last night. There was a shift in how the Sacramento Kings covered him. And CJ mentioned that a little bit in that clip, where they were like, oh, we're going to take away Trey Murphy. And the aggressive part of that is Trey Murphy has to not allow them to take Trey Murphy out the game. And that's what being more aggressive means. It's not forcing the issue. It's looking for your chance more or trying to put more pressure on the defense. If they're picking you up 30 feet away or if they're, sending their best guy at you now, you have to make them pay for that. And I think there might have been a couple of opportunities where he might have passed up a shot or two late. He's got to have that mentality that he had in the first quarter. 16 in the first. Most he's ever had in the first quarter in his career. It was a great start.
And it all came within rhythm. It didn't look like anything was being forced, Andrew.
This is a guy who right now has the longest streak in the NBA of consecutive games with at least 2 threes. I think he's hit now 3 threes in at least 6 straight games. Mm-hmm. That is what you're doing. You shoot the ball. And I think he's got to realize that when teams are starting, and he's done a good job of this overall in the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. When teams do start to take away, he is like, okay, now I got to find something else. But it's always got to be that way. You always have to find that next thing, and that's what's going to take you from a guy who's scoring 15, 16 a night to a guy who can go and get 21, 22, 23 a night. And that is the next step, I think, of Trey Murphy.
And that's what I took when I heard the word aggressive, too. I was thinking of aggressive as in go find space, go find another way to get your points. Because he actually mentioned it's such a short cut, I didn't cut it. But you could tell he was a little bothered by it because he was like, I got to go find other ways to score. And the first thing that popped in my head as you was just talking just now, and we'll move on to another player, is Steph Curry. Steph Curry, to me, is the greatest example of a number of things, 2 in particular, scoring and shooting, but also working to get those points. What are you doing right now with your hands?
Going this way, making this cut, boom.
The guy never stops
constant
running.
movement.
I tell that to people all the time, whether it's on TV or whether you ever get the chance to go see the Golden State Warriors play in person. Do yourself a favor, don't follow the basketball. Follow him.
For some of our
didn't I
for some of our age
he
listeners,
runs like 10. Doesn't he run like 10 miles a game or something like that?
It's a lot of miles.
Yeah.
For the our age listeners right now, it's like watching Rip Hamilton on steroids. Like Rip would never stop moving. Reggie Miller would never stop moving.
Never. Reggie Miller, yes.
And Rip would do the same thing. And that's what Steph is. And that's maybe that next elevation. Don't let another team take you out.
And that's what we mean. But that's what, when I heard aggressiveness, I think that's what it is. Because sometimes you can hear that and be like, hey, that means drive to the basket, force the issue. That's not. Go find a way, whether it's creating a space, setting a screen for yourself. You heard CJ earlier in this podcast say, maybe me to get a pass means I need to pass it or accept the pass. In other words, I'm going to be the guy that DeJounte throws it to me, move the defense, throw it back to him. Now I'll go find space. A lot of times we don't think of it like that, but those are ways, Andrew, you say it at practice all the time. That's actually helping you by not shooting it immediately. Let's shoot it in about a second or so.
And let me take a one step back and kind of talk about the offense, etc. There's a lot of called plays during the game, but most of the time in transition situations, you have a concept that you're trying to do. You're looking for a certain cut or a certain look. But most of that is kind of, okay, let's see what we can get here. Those are the times, hey, move. Don't just stand still. Don't let them take you out of the game. And I think that's the aggression that I think Coach Willie Green and C.J. McCollum are talking about.
7 points, 11 rebounds. Eve Meese, want to quickly get your thoughts on this because it seems like, look, even in San Antonio and others, I mean, it's the bright spot, I think, so far in this season. He didn't get the double-double, but a lot of the reasons because he had 5 personal fouls. And it was funny, I actually looked at a graph during shoot-around yesterday. I'm like, this concerns me because we know Sabonis is a walking double-double. His kryptonite was a guy named Jonas Valanciunas, who's not here. So who was going to get that? That's just a tough matchup for a guy who's facing these guys for the first time. I love what he said, and I played the soundbite in Monday's podcast about Wemby, or Wednesday, where he said he blocked me, so I knew the next time I had to do this. So he learns immediately, he knows what's happening. He's never faced a guy like Sabonis. Never. I mean, he's never. The guy had a double-double in the first quarter almost. Right? I mean,
it was...
So, but that's the thing, right? If he can not get in foul trouble, that's a double-double last night.
Yes, and there were a couple of shots that he missed that you're like, I mean, not a couple of shots. He's only 3 for 4. He didn't have as many attempts last night, but I love.
And is that also this team learning how to use him too?
100%.
Like maybe we need to get him more than 4 shots.
He's been last night was tough. I think just because of how they played.
Right.
Sabonis is going to play like that's just tough. But the things that I like about Eve right now, and he's making. I'm not going to say Rookie of the Year case yet because I think there's a lot of things that can still happen. But you look at this rookie class as a whole, and I go back to looking at, I think it was NBA.com's rookie ladder yesterday, and you look at the guys who are on the rookie ladder. Eve is now 4th on their rookie rankings, basically. The top 4 guys have all been guys who were taking advantage of injury situations. Mm-hmm. Jared McCain is number 1 on their list. Well, he's had a lot of time to score because nobody for the Philadelphia 76ers has played. And Eve has kind of done that in a sense. He got his first minutes because, okay, maybe he's not in the rotation if Trey Murphy is playing that first game.
Right.
And then you see what he did against Chicago and you're like, oh.
Right.
Maybe we should be playing him a little bit more.
Exactly.
And then he is playing. Mm-hmm. And then he's starting. And then he's got a little bit of soreness, and then he's starting. And you see that growth in him. This is his numbers in his last, I believe it's 9 games now. 13.2 points, 10.7 rebounds, over a block and a half, shooting 57 from the field. He is actively learning on the fly. This is a guy who I like to point out early on. I mean, the guy that we saw in preseason, who had like 4 fouls in 9 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man.
Couldn't stay out of the court.
First game against Chicago, he's going straight up. He's holding his hands up every time because he's like, this is what I'm supposed to do to stay out of foul trouble. So the fact that you see this growth from him every game, I loved that he said his favorite matchup. He told this to Aaron yesterday that we played on the pregame show. Wemby was his favorite matchup of the year because it was so difficult.
Who says that?
I love that.
I 100% agree.
And you saw there was a couple times that obviously Wemby got the best of him. He's learning. Oh, I can't. If you got to go with force. You can't just toss it up. I watched that guy for a whole year. He's really good at blocking shots, and it's not just because he's 7'4". His timing is incredible on that side. I've seen Wemby block shots where the guy has left his feet and Wemby's back is towards him. Right. He's able to still turn around and get the shot. It is incredible stuff. Learning against that and having an 18-14 game against a guy like that, you're going to go places. This kid is going to go places. But he is still very much learning on the fly. Mm-hmm. When you had Jonas and Larry last year against the Kings, when you did go 6-0 before the playoffs started, JV knows everything about him. Mm-hmm. And when your teammates as long as you have, when your little brother as long as you have, you know everything
when he's
about him. Larry's smart. You knew every move because he would listen to JV.
Right.
He's going to do this. You lost that. And we saw Eve get in foul trouble. We saw Daniel Tice get in foul trouble. Mm-hmm. It's a tough matchup for most people in the NBA. Also, one thing on Sabonis, incredible article on him. I ended up reading it after the game yesterday. Mm-hmm. Incredible article on ESPN from Baxter Holmes about Domantas Sabonis and Arvydas Sabonis and the legend of RV. Fantastic read. If you have a chance, go read it on ESPN.com. Shout out to the former employer. Always plugging. But you see that growth from Sabonis this year where he's taken the three and you're like, oh no, we probably need to close out. So it's a very tough matchup. But for Eve, I love seeing the growth of him. Mm-hmm. Never had a player in franchise history average double-double as a rookie. It's going to take some work in the rebounding to get there. But when you're pulling down 5 to 6 offensive rebounds a game, it helps to get there.
There's two things that stood out to me that we've been talking about in the podcast. I'll get you a quick opinion on this. Got about 5 minutes left, Andrew. I think what's amazing to me is this. He's doing it, to your point, 2/3 of our podcast has been tough to be consistent when you don't have your players, right? Yep. So he wasn't even looked at to be a starter. And he's doing those numbers that you're telling me with an ever-changing lineup, which really ought to tell you that a lot of it is just he's just playing the game in front of him. Leads me to this point that I'm going to ask you. Does what he's doing change the viewpoint on how this franchise looks, how they want to play moving forward? And what I mean by that is we heard a lot about small ball, right? Small ball, we're going small ball. Well, I think a lot of it's because you don't have that center. And there was so much talk in the offseason. Do you get a center? Do you not? We're going to go small ball. Well, you legit have a center. You have a center. So how does that then move forward as a franchise looking at, hey, I can depend on this guy. We can build around this guy. We can depend on this guy. This guy's to your point, went from a rookie to being a starter, which already tells me how they're viewing him. But does that change how they want it to play? Because I don't hear the whole small ball thing nearly as much anymore.
No, but I still think small ball is going to be a big identity of this team when you're healthy. Because if you look at it, you're still going to have games where you're going to want to throw lineups out there of DeJounte, CJ, Trey, Herb, Brandon, Z, some combination of those 6. But what Eve gives you now is a starting center to throw against teams that are going to play bigger. Because the thing about the NBA now is some teams are going to play big, some teams are going to play small. And you have to be able to combat that both ways. So now you have a guy who you need to play him 32 minutes a night, you can. But if it calls for it to be 20 minutes a night because you're going to finish with some other lineups, go back to that Phoenix game.
Yeah.
When your injury list was only 4 or 3, and you had the lineups of Brandon, Trey, CJ, DeJounte, Herb, and you're like, oh, well, this is fun.
Yeah.
You can finish. But when you don't have a Yusef Nurkic on the floor, you can use those kinds of lineups. So, and then at some point when those lineups get cooking, you can dictate to the other team.
Yeah.
This is the lineup that we're going to use. You have to combat us. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the key of now though, there isn't a starting center you have to go find.
Yeah.
You may have him already in the building.
Just develop him. Exactly right.
Who can be a double. He's 5th in the NBA in offensive rebounds right now.
That's crazy.
Not rookies.
Yeah.
Total.
Well, and we'll close on this with him in this aspect of it, because this is what I asked or I brought up to Jim either Monday or Wednesday. I was like, just imagine, Andrew, in that perfect world like we all would love to, if you actually had Zion on the court, you had Brandon Ingram on the court, you had CJ, Herb, Trey on the court. How much space do they command? And that allows him to just go be. I mean, that's like he's going to be better. Those numbers are going to be better when this team actually gets its players back.
You go back and look at, it was that first game, and you know, I know some of the Jazz guys in the past have gotten a lot of flack for screen assist stats.
Yeah.
But the space he had in that opener, where he was able to hit multiple lobs.
That's what I'm saying.
He was able to finish dunks, playing with a true point guard like a DeJounte Murray. Those are where he is going to thrive. And just quick one, I know we got to get off, but even when DeJounte came in to, I want to say it was before his press conference, when he first came to New Orleans, Eve was part of that summer league crew getting ready. And DeJounte was made a point to be like, hey, here's my number. You call me if you need me. Let's talk. In the piece with Aaron yesterday, she asked him who was some of the guys who have kind of been your mentors on the team. And he pointed out, oh, well, DeJounte Murray has been. DeJounte knows what he needs. He just played 2 years with Clint Capella.
Right.
He knows what a rim-running, offensive rebounding center can do for an offense. And I know he has not been playing basketball for that long.
Mm-hmm.
He is going to continue to grow, and it does solve one of the questions that you had coming into the season. Now the other parts are, how do the rest of these pieces fit in as well?
It's the exciting aspect of this. Normally on a Friday, as we close up, Andrew, Jim likes to do weekend showdowns in a trending number. That's what he likes to throw in there. I'll give you some minutes to think of a trending number. The weekend showdown, let's just make this easy. Saturday, you got the Cup semifinals. Atlanta, and Milwaukee, Houston, and OKC in the Cup. So give me something on Atlanta, Milwaukee.
I like how Milwaukee has answered.
Yeah.
It was oh wow, the Pelicans going to have a top 4 pick this year because of Milwaukee, and then
Milwaukee get traded week 1,
and then Milwaukee figured it out, and it's like, oh, okay, like this is what we figured out. Middleton's kind of been back in how he's playing right now. Love what Giannis is doing, and probably should be getting more MVP talk than what he is. But I don't know if we get it because this is what everybody wants, but the possibility of a Bucks Thunder Cup final where I think most people had Celtics Thunder as a NBA final. Bucks Thunder was kind of like, maybe. It's kind of like the second choice for some people. Really looking forward to seeing if we get a Bucks Thunder Cup final.
All right, so Andrew disrespecting Atlanta and giving no love to Houston, who's facing Oklahoma
Sorry,
City.
Dyson. Sorry, Larry.
Which, by the way, Atlanta, Milwaukee, 3:30 TNT. Houston, OKC on ABC at 7:30, so you have some time to do that. Look, Houston is my surprise team, and really not. I say surprise because of where they are right now, but I said it last year. That coach, going back to your ESPN article, which I thought was fantastic this week, the transformation of culture over there. And I love Dylan Brooks going, Ime Udoka is always pissed off. I mean, that's what he said. I mean, he's always angry, never happy, because if someone scores on their best defensive guy, it's your fault. But you see it. That is a team that they had that young scoring. Andrew, before he got there were fights amongst their top players on the court, in the game, in the huddle. Like, it was a disaster.
Yeah, Udoka doesn't play that. And he's a very no-nonsense coach.
My point is they're not going anywhere.
No, and they're not, and they're probably a team who could try to do something else. I mean,
so that's why it's interesting to me to see this Houston team and this OKC team, because as we know with OKC, they love being physical.
Oh, we know.
Houston loves being physical.
Don't tell Graf. No. Don't tell Graf at all.
But that's my point. I love this. I like to see this matchup. It's going to be a fun one for me.
No, I think both matchups are very fun. I think, especially the way. Going back to that Bucks-Hawks matchup, I do think the way Trey is playing right now, even though the efficiency is down, assists are up, the supporting cast has all kind of embraced their role, I think, this year over there. Jalen Johnson, the DeAndre Hunter has kind of come off the bench. I just think I like Milwaukee's firepower a little bit more in that. I love what Giannis is doing. In the other one, Houston OKC is going to be a very physical matchup, as long as the refs allow it to be a very physical matchup. I mean, the Rockets won to get here with a game that was 91-90.
Yeah.
That's a third quarter score sometimes in the NBA. 91-90. Yeah. So I think this OKC team, though, they see this as their first step towards, hey, we're a real thing. And, we got knocked out early last year. But this is our year. This is the guy. This is the group that we can be to take it. We went and got Hartenstein. We went and got Caruso. Yeah, we don't have Chet right now.
Incredible. Think about that.
But we're feeling pretty good about where we can be as a franchise.
All right, Jim's trending number. I'm going to give you 2 of mine. Ready? 2 and 6. 2 and 6. 2 games in the next 6 days. We got some more time to eat dinner with our family.
Sleeping in my own bed, baby.
Yes, 2 and 6. Give me a number that we can call it a trending number here.
It's trending upwards, and we just talked about this in the E. Misi segment. 3.8 offensive rebounds a game. He is over 5 in many of his games. as he continues to go there, I would like to see those defensive numbers goes up. That's what's going to get you to that double-double possibly for the season. But when you can have a guy who is 5th in the NBA in offensive rebounding, it's pretty good.
There it is. Andrew Lopez, as always, man, appreciate the time. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
For sure. And thank you for tuning us in on the New Orleans Pelicans podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. We'll see you back again on Monday. Enjoy the weekend, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans podcast. Join us 3 times per week on Pelicans.com, the Pelicans mobile app, the iHeartRadio app, or where you get your podcasts. And be sure to give Jim and Gus a follow on X at Jim_Eichenhofer and GCat_17. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Pelicans podcast.